So we've all heard of varifocal glasses, but what are they? How do they work? And why might you need them? Hi, it's Michael here at the Village Optician, and today I'm going to try to answer some of those very common questions we get about varifocals. So let's start off with why we would need them first of all. So you're going to need varifocals if you are over 40 at some point, okay? The reason I say that is because they help to correct distance and reading vision, and it's that reading vision loss that happens in something called presbyopia, which is essentially the loss of near focus with our age, and that affects you once you get into your 40s. Okay, some people literally 41 years old, and then they come with a problem with their reading vision. Their arms aren't long enough anymore, they've got to push things too far away to be able to see. Some people make it closer to 50, they do incredibly well, but you are going to lose that near vision focus at some point, okay? And it's going to be usually around about age 44, 45 when you start to notice it. Now, to start with, most people will just get a pair of reading glasses, especially those that don't already wear distance glasses, okay? They're going to start with reading glasses. Now, if you do wear distance glasses already, then this gets frustrating because you now have two separate pairs of glasses. You have distance ones to see across the room, and you have different power for reading ones to read things. And it's this difference in the power which is where a varifocal comes into play. The old way of correcting this sort of thing, i.e. needing distance and reading power at the same time, was in the bifocal, the one that has the little line. But that has major limitations because that gives you far distance and it gives you very close reading, but it misses the sort of middle part, okay, sort of arm's length, which is where most people's laptop or computer is, things like that. It makes it very awkward. And an easy way to sort of explain this is if you were stood looking in a jeweler's window and you wanted to see the price of something right at the back of the display, you would try to look through the bifocal part to read it, but the glass is in the way, so you can't get close enough to read it. And you can't see it through the top bit because it's too small to see with your distance part of your glasses. Now that is the sort of jeweler's window problem. Now that is fixed by the varifocal, because the way a varifocal works, it doesn't have just two bits of power, you know, the distance and then that little bit stuck in for the reading. It gradually changes power down the lens. Okay, so I'm wearing varifocals, but you can't tell. If I was wearing bifocals, you'd see the little line. So the way the varifocal works, it gradually changes power from the very top distance part where my pupil is, and it gradually changes that power, increasing its strength to my reading power more closer to the bottom. So if I look down to read, I'm looking through my reading part. If I look sort of down onto my desk where my computer is, I'm looking through the middle bit, which is kind of focused to where my computer is on the desk. So it actually gives you vision at every distance away from you. It smoothly transitions your vision. It's got every focal length within your glasses, rather than just having that split of distance and then this close. Okay, so that is how a varifocal works. Now to do that, we'll have to talk a little bit about some physics. Okay, so physics says that a lens power is a function of the material that the lens is made from and the curve on that lens. Okay, so the lens material is going to have a refractive index, which is what bends the light by a certain amount, and then it's going to have a fixed curve, and that is a fixed power lens. So when we make a varifocal though, we want lots of different powers, because we're starting with our distance and then we're gradually changing that power all the way through the middle distances into the very close. So we've got to change the curve on that lens. We've got to change that curve, and physics doesn't really like us to do that. So the biggest and most important thing about varifocals is the design of the varifocal. Okay, so the design is what have the very clever people in their computer programs done to minimize the distortion and the blur that we've created by just basically changing the lens curvature. Okay, changing that curve just creates a blur and distortion. So what have they done to minimize that blur and distortion? So all varifocals have that distortion kind of pushed to the sides. You can think of it as almost like having like an egg timer effect, you know, like a sort of an egg timer shape like that, where the sides are blurred here and you get this corridor of clearer vision down the middle. So now some varifocal designs are absolutely unbelievable and you have very little, minimal blur or distortions at the sides, and some are actually not so good, shall we say, and you get an awful lot of blur and distortion at the sides. Okay, so there's a lot to think about when you're looking at varifocals, okay, because there's all of that sort of thing to take in. So the design is one of the most important parts of your varifocal. So you'll need a varifocal because you are naturally losing your ability to focus on things up close. You know, and it's handy to have just one pair of glasses that does most things. And the way that it works is it's gradually changing that power down the lens to give you these different distances of clear vision. So that is what it's all about. Okay, there's a lot more to talk about with varifocals. We'll do that in some other little explainer videos, limitations of varifocals, problems that people have getting used to varifocals, all sorts of things like that, because there's an awful lot to take in. But that's essentially what they are, how they work, and why you might need one. Okay, so I'll speak to you soon with some more help and advice.